Hey everyone, this is Crystal, and today I'm doing a 12 by 12 layout using this picture of my cat, Nacho. This is what we call his Super Nacho pose. So when he lays like this, which happens quite frequently, we call him Super Nacho, and that's what I want to document today. I'm starting with a sheet of Basil cardstock. This is Avalanche cardstock. It is textured. And then I also have the new, well, I think it's new, like new to me at least, kitty cat stencil from scrapbook.com. I want to use this to create kind of my own background using pumice stone distress oxide ink and just a little bit of pink lemonade ink from scrapbook.com. I also have a couple other things. So I have this Life is Perfect simple set from Simple Stories. This also is not new. It's a couple years old, I believe. I don't see a date right. Oh, 2017. So it's a few years old, but I've never used it, so I guess it's new to me as well. But I thought it would be fun to use with this photo. There is some green in this collection, just like the background of my photo. I've also grabbed a few other things. I have the little paws stencil as well. I thought I might sprinkle a few paws around the page. And then I have a scrapbook.com sticker book in Rainbow Sherbet, the Word Fetty documented stamp set, and the All Heart stamp set, because I thought I would like to do maybe a little stamping. There's not a lot of embellishment in this collection or in this little pack. There's just this sheet here of stickers, so I'm not sure that there's going to be enough here for me to embellish the page without needing to use some of these other things. So that's why I grabbed those. But I'm going to start with my background. So I'm going to use this kitty cat stencil. I'm going to set my photo off to the side, and I basically want to cover the entire page. So there is cats at the top and on this one side that are cut off. So I want to make sure that I get those at the edge of my page. And then when I move the stencil around to repeat it, I'll just make sure not to use these unless they are at the edge. And in fact, I can probably turn it over so that it's on this side, and they will be slightly different, I think, but it should work. This one is cut off here too, so I just have to be mindful of that. Maybe I can even try and line another one of these up. But I basically want to cover the whole page and create kind of my own pattern paper. That's my goal. We're going to see how it goes. I have some mint tape. I'm going to tape the stencil down before I get started. And like I said, I'm going to use the pumice stone, the Distress Oxide ink, for the majority of the stenciling. I have a brush here that I'm going to use, and then I'm just going to go back in and touch up just that little nose with the pink lemonade using one of these tiny daubers from scrapbook.com. So that is the plan. I'm wondering if I should maybe mask off this edge so I don't go off. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I will get started. Okay, so I'm just going to finish taping down this stencil. This is really dual purpose, so it holds the stencil in place, but it also keeps me from getting ink all over the rest of my page. I tend to be incredibly messy when dealing with ink, as you'll see here in just a minute. So I find it's better to be safe than sorry and make sure that anything I don't want ink on is covered as much as possible while I'm working. So I just put that line of tape there to the side to make sure that I don't get ink off the edge of the stencil. Most of the bottom is covered, at least where I'll be inking, so I'm not worried about that. Once I have all that filled in, I'm just going to pick it up and move it to the next spot. So what I did wrong here is that I forgot to fill in the pink noses before I moved the stencil. I go back and fix it and it works out fine, but if you do something similar to this, just remember to do all the parts of your stencil before you move them. It was really easy to get it lined back up and to fill in all those little tiny noses, but it would have been even easier if I had just done it before I moved the stencil. So I moved it over and I just tried to line it up so that everything was staggered. The pattern on the background is not going to be perfect, but that's totally fine with me. I just wanted it to look like basically like a pattern paper. So I'm not worried about getting it exactly perfect. I just want the general look of a cat-filled pattern paper. So when I get to the bottom, I do just kind of pay attention to the pattern of the stencil and just try and line it up the best that I can. I do cover up some of the cats that I don't want to use that are overlapping some of the other cats that are already on the page. And to add the ink to the page, I'm actually using that brush. It's from Amazon. It's just a really inexpensive brush from Amazon. It's not a makeup brush. It's marketed as a inking brush. And I can't speak to the other inking brushes out there. I've never used some of the more expensive versions, but what I can say is that I really like these from Amazon. I got 2 sets. There are 2 different sets. The handles are different colors, which makes it really easy to use with different colored inks. I just have a designated one for each color family. You can get holders for them as well, but I had a holder that I wanted to use, just a little tin, and I knew it would take up less space than the holders that you can get with them, so I went with that option. I would recommend them. I have linked them down below just in case you're looking for a good inking brush option. So what I'm doing right now is just going back and filling in all those partial ones. Again, it was super easy to get the stencil lined up to get all those little partial faces all filled in. And I probably didn't need to do the ones in the center because my photo will go there, but just to be safe, I made sure to go back and fill all of the partial ones in. So now is where I'm coming in with that pink and that tiny dauber to do the tiny little noses. And I just do kind of a little brush down motion over the top of the nose, and some of the mouth gets colored in too, and that's totally fine. It was really easy to line them up and get this done as well. I don't make you watch that whole process, but I did go over the entire page and add pink to all those cute little noses. Okay, so now that my inking is all done, I can trim off the top of this page, just trimming off the branding strip, and then I will pull out that pattern paper pack and figure out what I want to use from this collection. So there's a few different patterns here. There are 2 of each paper, and I think maybe 6 total patterns or something. Not a huge collection, it's just one of their little mini kits, but there's plenty here for several layouts. So I chose a couple that I really liked. I really like this kind of corally pink color, so I'm going to use that right behind my photo, but I wanted to give it a white matte, so I grabbed just a scrap piece of textured white cardstock, just like my background, and I glued my photo down and just gave it a really thin matte. But I didn't do a great job of trimming it, so I wasn't really happy with how it looked. I thought, well, let me just grab a scissors and see if I can even it out. I think that made it even worse. So I thought, no, I'm just going to go with it, and then I immediately changed my mind and tore off that white paper and started over. I've realized over the years that I need to fix these things while I can, because if I wait and think I'm just going to go with it, and then I can't see anything else on the finished layout. So I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to scrapbooking by any means, but some things really bother me. So I know now what those things are, and I make sure to fix them before it's too late. And it doesn't bother me at all to rip things up and start over if I need to. Okay, so I have that striped pattern paper that I want to add behind my photo. I considered using the floral one, but this is a boy cat, so I figured the stripes would be more appropriate. But I didn't like it directly behind the pattern paper that I have behind my photo, so I decided to go back to this cut-apart sheet and use a couple of these cards, these 3x4 cut-aparts, just as layering pieces. So I don't think I'm likely to use these cards as cards, definitely not in a pocket page, and very unlikely to use them on a 12x12 page, so it doesn't bother me to just add them as layers. They act basically just like solid colored cardstock behind my photo. So I'm going to layer them on opposite corners to give opposite corners just peaks of those 2 colors. I did add some foam tape, just some 1-inch foam tape behind my photo layers before adding those 2 smaller cards to give it just a little bit of dimension. I like my photo to stand out on the page just a little bit. And then I did tear the edge of that stripe paper as well to give it just a little bit of texture. It was looking a little too blocky, a little too clean cut for me. So adding that bit of torn paper just gives it a little bit less of a formal look, and this is just a fun page, so it works for this page. I haven't glued anything down to the background yet, but I wanted to play around with some of the embellishments to get a feel for how this page was going to go, where I wanted everything to sit, and have just a better idea before I start adding my title, which is what I'm doing now. So I grabbed that sticker book. I had thought maybe I would grab some thickers from my stash, but the colors in this sticker book match really well with the colors in this collection. They're not a perfect match, but they're really close. And I love this tall, skinny font that's in these sticker books. I absolutely love it. I've used it before. You've probably seen it. It's it's just perfect. I don't know how else to describe it. So I decided to try this out. I did some kind of looking around on the page to make sure that I could spell out both words of my title in the colors that I wanted to use, because there are a couple colors here that I don't really want to use. They don't really appear in this collection. So I wanted to stick to the colors that worked with this collection, made sure that they were all there. I didn't do too much planning. You'll see I have to switch out a couple letters as I go on, but I did make sure that there was enough here that I could use. And then I'm spelling out my title, which is Super Nacho. Like I told you the story at the beginning, I figured that was a good enough title for this page. And I did stagger the words because I didn't want to cover up that little cat face that sits right under the word super. So I just moved Nacho over until it wasn't covering up that face. And it does end up leaving a little bit of trap space by the end. You'll see once I add my journaling and all the other embellishments, there is just a little bit of what would otherwise be trap space, or what I would consider trap space, trapped white space in on the layout. But because that cat face is there, it feels like it's meant to be. It feels like it's supposed to be that way. So in the end, it all works out. Okay, now that I have my title in place, I did use a T-square ruler just to make sure that it was straight and everything was level on the page. I'm going to finish embellishing. So there are some cat paws on the sticker sheet in blue and pink, so I'm going to sprinkle those on opposite corners of my photo. This is my kind of standard layout format recently, having the title off to the right hand side, the photo off to the left hand side, and then embellishing on a diagonal. It's a pattern or a format I use a lot. It doesn't bother me to use it more than once. It doesn't bother me at all, because each page has a different photo and a different subject and a different collection and different colors, and they don't look similar in the end, and also they're likely not to be next to each other in my album. So I find that if you find something that works for you, just go with it. And I was not in a mental state to give this too much thought to come up with a new layout for my page, so I just went with what works. Okay, so I added those two sets of paws on opposite corners. I'm coming in with that little paws stencil and just some black pigment ink. This is just a tiny little pad of black pigment ink that I had in my stash. I don't know why I thought I needed to use black pigment ink. You'll see it comes back to bite me in the rear here in just a second. But I really like the look of those black paws. They stand out. It adds some contrast to the page, and I think it's really cute, like little paw prints all over the page. I added some to the side of the title to give me my visual triangle, and then I am comfortable going ahead and adding my photo, gluing my photo down to the page, again, just with a tape runner. I did glue it at an angle. I like that it kind of follows that embellishment angle across the page. And then I'm going to add a few more little bits and pieces to finish embellishing this. I added a sticker that's like a ball of yarn. I basically chose it because it was yellow and I needed more yellow on the page. And then I'm going to go back to the sticker book and add a couple phrases. There were a couple that worked. I have that one phrase at the top of the page that's from the sticker sheet that came in the collection, and I added another little phrase to it from the sticker book, and then I'm going to kind of mimic that in the bottom cluster as well and add another little phrase there. And then I'm going to choose a couple labels. There are labels in this sticker book in all of the coordinating colors. So I'm going to go to that page and pick just a couple to add. I wanted to add some stamping to bring in more of the black that I used for those little paws, and I figured stamping was a good way to do that. So I'm going to tuck one label down at the bottom of the photo and one at the top, and then I'll add just a little bit of stamping to each one. I don't use that same black pigment ink because look here, I've managed to get it all over the page. I should know better. I should check my hands. I should be more careful, but I'm not. So I just had to grab my sand eraser, and there you see I'm finally checking my page or checking my hands and wiping them clean. But I grabbed my sand eraser and just took off the top layer of the background paper, and it turned out fine. You can't see it in the end, but well, I was about to say lesson learned, but likely I'll do it again in the future, so that's not entirely accurate. Okay, moving on. I put away that pigment ink so that I don't use it again for this, and I grab out just some VersaFine Black Onyx ink. In case you don't know, pigment ink tends to stay wet a bit longer, which makes it great for lots of different things, for ink blending, for embossing, for things like that, but not so great when you're trying to work around it on a page and you end up smearing it all over the place. So just something to keep in mind. Okay, so I used that smaller stamp set and stamped one phrase at the bottom of the page, and then I partially stamped another phrase at the top. And I'm pretty much done embellishing, but I was feeling like it needed a little bit something. It looked a little bit plain for me, so I am going to mat the entire page on the other sheet of this striped paper. So to do that, I have a pretty foolproof way for cutting mats, for gutting the sheets, because I don't like to waste that paper on the inside. I line up the edge of the paper with the 1-inch mark that's to the right of my my little cutter, and then I line up the cutter at the 1-inch and take it down to the 11-inch. So that gives me a perfect 1-inch border all the way around my page, and I can then just take a 1/4 inch off of each side of my finished layout to give that 1/4 inch border, and that gives me plenty of room to add glue around the inside of that matted, the pattern paper here, and still get my 1/4 inch border, and I still get to save the inside of that page. I have no idea if any of what I just said made sense. Hopefully you watched what I was doing and that helped. But that is the page all done. I did add some journaling off camera. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found some inspiration. All of the products I've used will be linked down below as always. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments and I will be sure to get back to you. And if you did enjoy this video, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you back here soon.